Find every color under the sun, along with all of your painting supplies. Build a deck for those summer cookouts. Fix that leaky faucet in the bathroom, or put in those new windows you've been wanting. Whatever the project, see Cleveland Lumber Company, 217 Arrowwood Street in Shelby. The project start and end with Cleveland Lumber Company in Shelby.
Good morning, everyone, on this Tuesday, the 19th of August, 2014. Milton Baker along with you on the Community Profile today on WLON, WOHS, and WCSL. Our co-host and executive producer, Sandy Alexander, unable to be with us today, but we are glad to have in the studio with us a couple of very special guests today. I'll introduce Jason Harp with the Lincoln County Historical Association. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning. How are you?
And Ramona Ramsey with the Crouse History and Photo Project. Hey, Ramona.
Good morning, Milton.
Good to have both of you with us. I'm going to adjust your microphone up just a little bit there. There we go, so we can hear you loud and clear. We're here to talk about a very special event coming up on August the 22nd, this Friday. And who wants to tell us about the rededication reception at the Cultural Center of a Lem Nolan painting that was done back in the 50s, I believe. Tell us about that, Jason.
On Friday night, we're going to have a rededication ceremony for a very important painting that was completed by Lem Nolan. He was actually commissioned to paint this painting in 1957. And so we're going to have it's back in Lincoln County, so we're going to have a rededication. It's hanging in the solarium at the Cultural Center. So we're going to have a rededication ceremony starting at 6:30. And so we'll have food, we'll have lots of good community fellowship, if you will. People will be able to enjoy the painting. We'll have very, very happy to have Dr. Kevin Cherry, who's originally from Lincoln County, who's now the Deputy Secretary of the North Carolina Department of Cultural Resources. He will be there. And Kevin was very helpful in us getting this painting back to Lincoln County.
Quite a project to get the painting back. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Ramona, you want to tell the folks out here who don't know who Mr. Lem was?
Lem Nolan was a resident of Crouse, North Carolina, located between Lincolnton and Cherryville on Highway 150, and his family moved into that area the latter part of the 1800s, early 1900s, and he grew up in Crouse and eventually became a hairstylist and worked in Lincolnton, and then eventually reopened a shop in Crouse. And then later in life, I think it was around the early 1950s, that when he retired from hairdressing, that he decided to paint. And he was a primitive artist and very prolific artist. And he was a treasure to the community. He ended up, I think he died in 1977, is 90 plus years old at the time, and was painting pretty much up until the time that he passed away.
Yeah, he did. And you say he painted, and when he wasn't doing that, he painted. Because he loved to paint. He would have lots of different paintings going on, some at two or three at the same time. And a lot of folks around Crouse have his paintings. A lot of his paintings are out there somewhere. And what was it, a couple of years ago, you had back in the summer at the Cultural Center a display of some 60 paintings by Mr. Lem. I call him Mr. Lem as I knew him. I knew him as a young boy in Crouse, Mr. Lem or Lem Nolan. So yeah, that exhibit was a couple summers ago, and that went over very well. There was a book that went along with that. And as part of this rededication ceremony, there is a reprinting of the book, the Mr. Lem book that the Crouse History Program did, and you're adding some to it, right?
Yes, that's correct. The original publication is a joint effort between the Crouse Community History and Photo Project and the Lincoln County Arts Association. And it contains the story of Mr. Lem along with all of the paintings that were in the exhibition back in the summer of 2012. And Jason has documented the process that he went through in securing this new painting, Christ Lives Again, for the Lincoln County Historical Association. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, tell us about it, Jason. This is a huge, not just a huge painting in the sense of how important it is to the community and to the city and county, but it's a huge painting. It's big.
It's big.
It's big. And it was quite an effort, too, a big effort to procure it and get it back to Lincoln County. The painting, as Ramona indicated, depicts the life of Christ. It's a large mural. Where was it? What was going to happen to it? And how'd you get it back to Lincoln County?
Well, he was commissioned in 1957 to paint it by an organization that for whom we're trying to track down some minutes now to see what was involved with how they found out about him. We don't know exactly how this organization in Raleigh found out about him to even commission him. But anyway, he was commissioned to paint it. He went to the school. It was at a reform/training school in Eagle Springs, North Carolina, known as Samarkand or Samarkand Manor. And at that time, the administration of the school thought it would be a good idea, in consultation with what was at this time known as the Department of Public Safety, to have some art at the school. So they commissioned him to do it. He went and saw the area where they wanted it hung, which was in their chapel. So he painted this large painting. He painted them on masonite boards. There are 3 4-foot by 12-foot masonite boards and 1 2-foot by 12-foot. So overall, when it was hung at Samarkand, it was a 14-foot tall by 12-foot wide painting. It hung in the chapel until they did some renovations and was moved into the auditorium, we think in the mid-1970s. And it remained in the auditorium until we were able to secure it. It was donated to us and we were able to take it down. But the state cut the funding for Samarkand in 2011. And at that time, we started making connections, phone calls, emails, trying to determine what we could do to possibly get it back in Lincoln County.
Wow. So had no one cared, which obviously people care very much about Mr. Lim and his art, but had no one known it was there or whatever, what do you think would have happened to this painting? Is the facility it was in, was it scheduled for demolition or being sold, and who knows what would have happened?
Well, Samarkand, there are some, I think at least the state is making their plans for the campus of Samarkand. I don't know what those plans are, but the painting itself, because it was owned by the Department of Public Safety, with these types of things, there is a chance that it could have been part of the state surplus auction. When we inquired about this, one of parts of, I guess, their due diligence was to check with the North Carolina Museum of Art, the North Carolina Museum of History, and maybe 1 or 2 other state-supported, institutions to see if they wanted it. And luckily, they did not want it. So once they did that, they got back in touch with us, and the North Carolina Department of Public Safety donated it to the North Carolina Historical Commission, who in turn donated it to us.
Yeah, and this didn't happen overnight. You just
It
didn't
took
make
about 3 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, you just didn't make a phone call one afternoon and say, "Hey, you guys want it? Okay, we'll take it." It didn't go that way. A lot of red tape.
Yeah. And then we had to go get it. So.
Yeah, had to go get it. Yeah, and let's talk about. It was painted in Crouse and taken. Now this was, where did you say, Salisbury?
No, Eagle Springs, North Carolina. It's in the eastern part of the state.
Okay, Eagles.
It's near Pinehurst, down
Yes,
in that.
near
Okay,
Pinehurst.
so it was painted in Crouse and moved to that area where the Samarkand school is. How did they first get it from Crouse there, and then how did you get it back to Lincoln County?
Well, one interesting thing about where it was painted, it kind of pulls Milton into the story.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because I interviewed Hubert Mooney back around the 1st of June, who is a gentleman who lives in Crouse and was around Crouse and involved with the moving of the painting, but he informed me that Mr. Lim actually painted the panels in the back of Edmund Sain's feed store in Crouse, and that building is currently the home of Milton's Memory Lane.
Yep, very proud.
Antiques, yes.
Very proud to know that the store I'm renting and as an antique store has a little history with this painting. But yeah, Mr. Lim, someone was telling me the other day, and Ramona, it may have been you, it may have been somebody else, that in the back of the feed store, he actually had the boards laid out on sawhorses, and he painted that way.
Yeah, and then when the painting was finished and ready to move, a truck with 2 drivers came to Crouse, and Hubert Mooney and Edmund Sane and David Chapman and Bill Yoder, I think, were the ones involved in helping the drivers load the panels, and then it was transported.
Those are some great Crouse names there, and only Hubert is still with us at this time. So a lot of history in the moving of the painting to its home for many years, and now it's back in Lincoln County. How'd you get it back home, Jason?
Well, we were very lucky. There's a gentleman in the western part of the county that we used, a guy named Skip Locke, to do a lot of. He's a finished carpenter, does amazing work. He built it's not really a crate, it's sort of a framing system, and TRT trailer sales allowed us to use one of their covered trailers.
Right.
So we had the framing system designed to fit in this covered trailer, so we drove it there. It was quite difficult to get on the wall. The auditorium where it was hanging is a cinder block building, and the way I mentioned them being in different panels, so we thought they may have mounted the panels from the bottom first to the top, but it was the other way around. And each of these panels are tongue and groove, so in addition to fitting inside or on top of each other, they were drilled into the wall. So anyway, we got them down, wrapped them up, and the way the framing system was set up, each of the panels would slide in to the framing system, and we locked everything in and transported them back. And so it was an interesting process, to say the least.
A very precious cargo, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
The painting itself, sometimes depending on the climate control conditions and so forth, paintings are in one stage of deterioration or another. How well preserved is this painting?
I would say overall it's in good condition, considering the number of years it's been hanging. And even in the auditorium where it was hanging, I'm sure it did not maintain 70 degrees and 50% relative humidity like it should be in. But overall, it's in pretty good condition. It does have a few areas where it looks like maybe when it was moved from the chapel to the auditorium that someone may have scraped a little bit of the paint while it was in being moved. But what we're going to do is I've already talked to a conservator that we have spoken with in the past, a very reputable art conservator from Columbia, South Carolina, about coming. He's actually interesting story. He's in Louisiana right now doing some conservation work on some paintings that are in a chapel that were damaged by Hurricane Katrina. But anyway, we're going to have him come and give us a quote to fully restore the painting. And he'll actually do it, as it's now hanging on the wall.
All right, and again, it's on permanent display. The rededication ceremony is this Friday night, 6:30 to 8 o'clock at the Cultural Center, and then folks will be able to go in during regular Cultural Center hours and see the painting from now on.
That's right.
And so if you can't make it on Friday night, which unfortunately I won't be able to make it on Friday night due to work here at the radio station covering high school football that night, I would love to be there, but I'll definitely get over there to see it. There's going to be on Friday night refreshments and so forth for anyone who comes.
Yes, what we have planned is, the best way to describe it would be just some really good homemade Southern refreshments. Debbie Hefner and her mom, Betty Carolyn Davis, are busy making homemade buttermints this morning. And the remainder of the week, they're going to be making various yummy flavors of homemade pound cake, and there'll be sandwiches and lemonade and iced tea. And we want everyone to know that this is open to the public, and anyone in your listening area is invited to come out and see the painting and have some iced tea and have a piece of pound cake and
enjoy good company.
Buy a book if you
Yes,
they'll be available.
And this display of this Life of Christ mural and the book that's been done, and all the last couple summers ago, the exhibit all summer long, that is just bringing more and more attention to Lim Nolan and his work. And has this gotten responses from folks far and wide, and has it helped to uncover any lost or unknown, Mr. Lynn? Because no one knows how many paintings are out there every day. Any day a new painting might just turn up somewhere.
Well, there are 5 new paintings that have been included in the book that have surfaced since the publication of the first book. And in fact, one just surfaced last week. And up in Virginia at an estate auction, and I'm not going to mention the names of the individuals that were involved in that, but it's a fairly significant piece.
It is.
Yeah.
So I've seen a picture of the picture of the painting. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and like I say, who knows where all Mr. Lim's paintings are? But I mean, they were sent and given to people in faraway places.
I've like I say, this most recent one was found at an auction in Virginia. I have heard of one in an antique store in Myrtle Beach, so they could be anywhere. And believe you me, when I go out traveling around looking and digging, if I see any kind of framed pictures, I start looking for, something by Mr. Lim. Yes.
So if there's anyone out there listening that knows someone who has a
Yeah, there
Mr.
you
Lim
go.
painting, we would just like to have a photograph of it, get the dimensions, and document it
Yeah.
to be included with all that we have.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing what the exhibit summer before last, I guess it was that. It's amazing what that exhibit did, and the number of people who came out for the
500.
for the opening of that exhibit, and it was on display all summer long. Folks from everywhere coming to
Yeah,
see
we had
that.
I think close to 500 visitors to the galleries for that
Yeah.
exhibition.
So hope for a great turnout this Friday evening, and again, like Ramona said, it's free, open to the public. Going to be all kind of good food and refreshments, and you'll get to see this. Right now, it's hanging, but is it veiled right now? Will there be an official unveiling of it?
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, there you go.
And when Jason gives the measurements on it, you hear 14 by 12 feet, but you have to think about it. It's the size of the floor of a room.
It's
Yeah.
probably maybe this room
The room we're
in.
sitting in.
Yeah, probably is. So if you look up at the ceiling, that gives you some idea how big this painting is. Now, at the Crouse Methodist Church, later Mr. Lim did do a similar version of this mural that's on display at Crouse United Methodist Church, correct?
It's very similar to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, similar to
The
it,
same,
but not the same size. Or
No.
I think it's about 3 by 5
It
feet,
is.
something like that.
And Mr. Lim just did he just did all kind of wonderful work, and it's just amazing the way he began painting. It was just sort of by chance. If the story is, if I'm repeating the story correctly the way I heard it, after he retired from his work as a beautician there in Crouse, was it that he was going to raise chickens or something about he painted a
Painted a
chicken on a
sign.
sign, and his daughter said, told her father that it was pretty good. And
It was her set of oil paints, in fact, that he used.
Okay.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, he's painting, and people who can remember when the traffic used to go through Crouse pretty steadily there, back in the 50s, 60s, and 1970s, you'd see a elderly gentleman, a tall, thin man sitting on a chair, maybe in the front yard of what is now the Debbie and Willie Hefner home. He'd sit in the front yard there and paint all day, or he might sit in the back of the feed store and paint a 12 by 14 mural. You never knew where you'd see Mr. Lim, but he was usually painting something. Quite a individual, and there was more to him than beautician and artist. He loved to act in some of the plays that they would put on in Crouse back in the early days. He was just quite a character.
He was a unique individual.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about the rededication, Jason or Ramona, that you
The
want to-
Lincoln Cultural Center is at 403 East Main Street in historic downtown Lincolnton. Again, as Mona said, we invite everyone. We do this for you. We do this for the general public. This is why we go to the links that we go to find these things and get them in a place where people can see them and take advantage of them and learn from them.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
All right. Well, thank you both for coming. Hope for a great turnout. And folks, like I said, if you can't go on Friday, it'll be on public display from then on at the Cultural Center during their regular hours,
Yeah.
and that will be a free
Oh yeah.
event. Just come see anytime at your leisure and at your convenience. All right. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Milton.
Appreciate you coming
Thank you,
over.
Milton.
Thank you, Ramona and Jason Harp from the Lincoln County Historical Association, and Ramona Ramsey from the Crouse Community History and Photo Project. Let's quick put in a plug for the Photo and History Project, Ramona. We're still looking for Crouse-related items.
We are accumulating photographs from the Crouse area. We're also interested in photographs that would come out of the Bethpage area up 182, any of the surrounding Lincoln, Gaston County areas, especially church that would, like to accumulate some photographs and let us scan them and include them in the project. We meet the second Tuesday of each month at the Crouse United Methodist Church from 4 o'clock until 6 o'clock, and we have guest speakers. In September, it'll be Terry Waldrop, who has compiled 3 books of abandoned and old cemeteries in Lincoln and Gaston counties, and we look forward to Terry Waldrop being our guest in September.
It's always a lot of fun. I know I enjoy those meetings immensely, and everyone else I'm sure does as well. All right, that's our community profile for today. We thank you for listening in. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, just call the Historical Association, Lincoln County Historical Association, call the Cultural Center, call me here at the radio station. I'll put you in touch with whomever. I'll give you the information to get in touch with the Crouse History Project and Photo Project. Whatever the case may be that you need. Tomorrow, our guest will be from York, South Carolina, talking about the annual Summer Fest. So we hope you'll tune in then. And for our co-host and executive producer, Sandy Alexander, who was not able to be with us today, this is Milton Baker thanking you for tuning in.